Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 253, and this is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. I had 19 books, so it was a pretty average week for me, and I go least pick of the week to best pick of the week, so let's get started. Number 19 for me this week was Hunt for Wolverine, Claws of a Killer, issue 4, my least favorite of the Hunt for Wolverine series, and all of them for me were pretty much in the middle or lower, but this one especially, I just don't know how this really connected to the Hunt for Wolverine. I don't think it needed to be 4 issues. I did like the artwork overall. I think the darker artwork fit for the story, kind of felt like an espionage book, but didn't really care for the characters, and again, I didn't really see the main point of this book, so giving that one 2 stars. Moving on to number 18, which is the Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 308. Not a fan of the art style. This is the same artist who did X-Men and the Wolverine, or Wolverine and the X-Men. Wasn't a big fan of his artwork there. Just not my style. And it's very one-shotty. I don't really know what direction this book is going in. But if you like Sandman, I guess you'd enjoy this issue. They try to pull at the heartstrings, but never really got me there. So, Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 308, gets 2 stars for me, and that is number 18. Let me open up my water, and we're going to move on to number 17. Alright, number 17 for me this week was Carson Has an Interstellar Eye, issue 6. I thought it was a pretty good ending to the book. It's still as trippy as it can be, and I think this is another series that kind of got pulled in so many directions. I didn't like it as much as the first volume, but I like the ending, especially with Chloe and her dad. That's the heart for the book for me, and like I said, pretty trippy. I did like this panel, though, where Chloe has to, like, change her dad, because her dad becomes, like, a baby, but it's still alive. I thought that was just the weirdness factor that Carson usually goes for, so I enjoyed that. So overall, giving that one 3 stars, and artwork solid as well, because it's trippy, and it matches the writing, so I like the artwork. Now moving on to number 16, which is Infinity Wars, issue 2. A pretty middle ground event for me, and that's saying a lot for me, because I usually don't like cosmic events at all, but I'm feeling attached to this book and gonna see it through. Artwork I thought was better in this issue. It wasn't as dark. I like the pencils a lot, so enjoyed the artwork, but everything really stays in one place a lot here. It's still the events of Gamora meeting up with the people who have the stones, including, or the gems, whatever they're calling it for this event, yeah, so they're meeting up with the villains and the heroes, and of course Star-Lord doesn't end up dying. There's this way to get him free, and I don't know how I felt about that, but I think we all expected that. But I liked the Gamora Thanos moments, were really interesting, but I did feel like her getting the stones / gems were quick in this book. It was like she got all the gems in one swoop, and I wish there was a little bit more of an effort for that, but overall, like Gamora as the lead of this book, and that is what's keeping me for this series. So overall, I gave this 3 stars. I did like the first issue more, but not a bad second issue, especially if you're a Guardians of the Galaxy fan and Gamora fan. Moving on to number 15, which is Edge of Spider-Geddon, issue 1. Won't go too in-depth with this because I did do a review for it, but yeah, Edge of Spider-Geddon, this is a book that obviously is just a prelude into the main event. It is a sequel book to Spider-Verse, and I like all the punk elements. The plot wasn't there for me. There wasn't much of a plot, but I like, punk Hulk and punk or anarchy Captain America. That was fun stuff in the book. So, and also the artwork I felt fitted. Some nice inking for this one. Edgy inking. Like the colors as well. And then I like the cliffhanger with Mayday, of course. So that automatically makes it at least a ½ star better, because you got Mayday there. So happy to always see her. So giving this one 3 stars. Also forgot to mention in the beginning of my, interlude, I forgot to mention the beginning of this review, and I just remembered while I was doing that review. Check out my Kickstarter for Like, Follow, Like Daughter if you guys can. I'll have the link in the description below for that, the book is about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her, and then she inherits his abilities. It is for the trade, so it's the first 4 issues. Would love if you guys could go check that out. Should have mentioned that in the beginning of the review, but I forgot. But now we're back to the reviews. Sorry about that commercial break. Moving on to number 14, which is Pearl issue 1. This is a book, you know, I like the world. I like the idea of diving deep into this tattoo-inspired world, and that's cool. I enjoyed that aspect, and the artwork was really good for me personally. I like the art. I'm an Alias fan, but it doesn't look too much like Jessica Jones because of these bright blues and greens, which I enjoyed from the art, but the actual characters weren't very interesting for a first issue to grab you, and that was very disappointing with Pearl. So, giving this one 3 stars. Don't know if I'll get the next issue. Didn't really quite hook me for that one. Alright, moving on to number 13, which is Tony Stark Iron Man issue 3, which I'm going to call the Westworld issue because that's kind of how it felt. We get to see this new product that you could put on the mask and go into this world, and you get to see, you know, Dazzlers and X-Men, and it's cool. It's a cool, trippy type story. I like the artwork for it especially, and definitely the point of view that you get to see that, like, you are Iron Man. I thought that was definitely the coolest part of this issue, but it's a filler issue. It's, you know, it's issue 3, so it's kind of weird to get a filler issue so early on, and you know, I think the dialogue sometimes feels a bit bogged down. There's a lot going on, but the concept is really creative, which I don't expect anything less from Dan Slott, and artwork is really well done too. So Tony Stark Iron Man issue 3 gets 3 stars for me. Moving on to number 12, which is Volition issue 1, which I wanted to get printed, but actually sold out, so I want to congratulate Ryan again for that. That's cool. And I was really looking forward to this. I'm a huge fan of Ryan's writing, and I really like the world here, and the commentary we get to see with it. It's about these robots, these AIs that are kind of going out of date, and there's more AIs coming out, and there's this virus called the Rust that is destroying these robots. So I thought that was a cool concept. I will say that a lot of the issue takes the exposition, you know, part of the story a lot, which is why I couldn't go higher, but I think obviously it was necessary, and I'm going to like the issues to come because we have this exposition, we know the world, and hopefully we're going to dig into Amber's character more, who's our main character and our point of view character, which I liked her. I liked from what we saw, but we only saw her in the beginning and the end of the issues. So, and also the artwork is drop dead gorgeous, the coloring is unbelievable, and that is another reason you should pick this up and why it's higher than some of the other books this week, is the artwork was just stunning for this book. So I'll definitely be getting the next issue and definitely try it out. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 11, which is Incredibles 2, Crisis in Midlife and Other Stories, which is a weird title. Part 2, issue 2. A lot of twos there. But I really like the first story, especially where it's Bob trying to teach his children how to be heroes, and they're getting frustrated with their dad, and the dad's trying to push them, and it's a cool story. I enjoyed that aspect. The other stories definitely felt a bit more like short stories, a little bit more forgettable, like Jack's Cookie stories. Definitely more about the artwork and cartooning for that one than the story for me. I did like the story of Bob meeting Elastigirl and their like beginning dates was fun. But overall, if you're an Incredibles fan, this is a fun series and a good, you know, good stories to get as we wait, I guess, for more Incredible stuff, if we get any. You know, we waited 14 years for a second movie, but I like it. It's a fun series. I'm glad that, I believe, it's Dark Horse that puts this out. Usually Joe Books was putting stuff out, so I think Dark Horse is doing a lot of the other ones now, though. Alright, moving on to number 10. I gave that 3.5 stars. Number 10 for me is Magic Order issue 3. A lot going on in this cover. And with this issue, we get to see the father get targeted. And, you know, he meets up with his son who doesn't want to be a wizard anymore because of what happened with his daughter. And we get to learn a little bit more about that. And then the dad dies, and that's the story. It's a bit of a slower burn for me, this book, because I feel like it's more of like, hey, this is a comic, but really you're going to get the real story in the Netflix show, which I don't know how to feel about that, but that tends to be the Millar books in the past, you know, couple of years now. It's all set up for a different property. And there's some writers and some creators that end up doing that, and obviously it's your choice if you like those type of books or not, and if you want to transition into the other medium. But I like this story. Again, it's slow, but I really do like the world and the characters, and it's all about building the world. It's, for me, I think it feels like a prequel book more than anything. Actually really excited for the Netflix show too. So the Magic Order issue 3 for me gets 3.5 stars. Also some, well, I was going to show a not safe for work page, but I'll show this page. Great artwork as well, especially with the action here. I like the facial expressions, so definitely pick up that book if you're interested. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 9, which is Batgirl, issue 25. This was my most anticipated book for the week. And if you're a Batgirl fan, I think you'll enjoy it, but there's nothing too special in the book. I like the voice for the new creator that's going to be jumping on to Batgirl, and I liked her story where it's Batgirl who saves somebody and then that person ends up dying like a year later, and how Barbara feels about that. I enjoyed that, and there's some really good solid artwork for that story that feels like a flagship or a first story for this book, so I like that. I didn't really like the art for Dick Grayson and Barbara's story, but I liked the concept of it, them taking the relationship slow, figuring out what it is, and then just comforting each other. And if you're a Dick Grayson and Barbara fan, you'll enjoy that. And I love Dick and Barbara, so I was happy with it. The third story is where it gets weird and why it's kind of low. It's just a weird story about these two girls who are villains and they like dressing up in costumes. It was weird. This is the Paul Dini story, and it's so bogged down. It's so bogged down with the dialogue. I couldn't get into it, honestly. So I was surprised because I usually do like Dini's writing, but wasn't into that story. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. If you're a Barbara fan, pick it up, but there's nothing too special in this issue. And if you're not a hardcore Barbara fan, you could probably just wait for the next issue for the new creative team, if you wanted to try out the new creative team. Alright, moving on to number 8, which is Injustice 2, issue 32. And if you like Green Lanterns, this is definitely an issue to pick up. It's sarcastic, and Lobo's a Green Lantern, so that's fun. And I love the artwork. The expressions are just so good. I love the artwork here. So detailed. It's not a lot's going on in this, though. It's definitely more character-driven in this issue. But I love seeing Cass. I love seeing Connor. And if you're a fan of these characters, I think it's worth picking up. And there's a good ending with Sinestro. So I thought it was a solid issue. And what makes it a 4-star book, honestly, very much the artworks. Like I said, some of the best artwork from DC is in Injustice 2. Maybe some of the best mainstream artwork is in this book. So, and most consistent. So Injustice 2, issue 32 gets 4 stars. That's number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Fence issue 9, a book that is always solid and always on top of its game. With this issue, we get to see our main character is winning his fights, winning his fence games, and people are surprised, and then Senjay kind of gets upset about it, and you see them in a fight. You get to learn a little bit more about these secondary characters, which I like. You learn more about the person that our main character is fighting. Artwork is so fun and anime style, and if you like stuff like Yuri on Ice and Free, this is the book for you. And every month it's just such a fun read. And it's honestly the buy the book sports story in a really good way, a really fun way. So I recommend it. So that's number 7, and I give that 4 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Babyteeth, issue 12, which I really like that this is actually the first birthday of Clark. So it plays off of our real time, that this has been a year that this book has been out, and then we get to see that Clark has turned 1. And this is definitely more of a transition issue where we get to see our main character, Sadie, want to obviously save her son, and they're working their way up to going into this demon world, and then by the end of the issue they do, and we get to see that Sadie collapses, she gets this vision, and it has to do with the father. So we're gonna finally find out who this father is. I have a feeling it wasn't that teenage boy in that first issue. So I love this book, I love these characters, and it's such an interesting world, and I really like the small moments. Like I said, the first birthday, the father saying, hey, you know, don't worry that Clark's not here, it's all about the parents anyways. It's got this realistic thing in the story about demons and everything else. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really solid issue. I really like this series, and I love the artwork. I think it fits so well. It's muddy, but in a good way. But the colors, especially these red colors here, help bring out that darkness and just brings a really nice contrast. So giving Babyteeth issue 12 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is The Loud House, and I did a whole in-depth review on this, and yes, this is an advanced review, and I read it this week, so I wanted to add it into my countdown somehow, and it actually made it to number 5. So check out my in-depth review for more, but what I really liked about this is the expansion of the Loud House world. It's not just about Lincoln. We get to see stories with Lynn, just Lynn-centric, and some stories with, you know, Clyde and other supporting characters that maybe we haven't seen in a while, like Lynn's basketball friends. So I enjoyed that aspect, and I just love the direction the Loud House is going, and these are always a fun stories if you enjoyed the Loud House. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Batman issue 53, and I dropped one of the books. But yeah, Batman, I enjoyed the God comparison where Bruce says, hey, you know, everyone believes that Batman's God, but he's not. And it's, you know, Bruce talking about himself, obviously, without saying, I'm Batman. So I liked it. I really like Lee Week's artwork a lot. I really like the tone he brings to the book. So I enjoyed just the dialogue. You know, it's kind of a slower story, but still very poetic. And that's where I think King is at his best, is when he could bring these poetic realism to the book. So I enjoyed it. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Moving on to number 3, which is Extermination, issue 1, which I also did an in-depth review on if you want more information on it, but I was pleasantly surprised by this. Finally, the X-Men felt like they were together. We get to see Kitty in this book, we get to see Jean, we get to see the other Jean. So I like this, and I like the mystery that was building. We get to see some deaths in this issue. One that I was like, okay, like, I don't know if a lot of people cared about that character, but maybe if you read X-Men Blue, you would have. And then you have Cable, you know, our Cable that ends up dying, and then the twist is that's young Cable, or Cable from another universe that's killing them off. So I thought that was a good twist, a really solid way to start this arc, and the artwork is beautiful. Reminds me of Stuart Amenanon, never pronounced his last name right, but it reminds me of his art style, so I enjoyed this one, and I'm going to give that 4 stars. So that's number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 30. Just a really good finale. And, you know, at times I felt like this book is a bit crowded, but the crowdedness worked for this issue. It was the army, you know, going in to fight Lord Draken. And I love it's Jason who gives the dagger to Kimberly. And she's like, really? And she, you know, she feels honored that she gets this from Jason. But the strike moment where it's Kimberly who ends up hurting Lord Draken, I was like, yes, finally, alright? Usually with the Power Rangers, it's never a girl who makes the final blow, so that was cool, and I love that as Kimberly because it's so personal. So I thought it was a really good ending, a really good way to use all these characters to make it feel epic, and the artwork was so good. I just love this style so much, so, and I just love this page. But yeah, really good ending. Giving this one 4.5 stars. Excited to see what the Shattered Grid one-shot will give us in a couple weeks. Alright, moving on to number 1. This book just really surprised me, and I wasn't even going to originally pick it up, but obviously glad I did. And it is Crowded, issue 1 by Image. I was pleasantly surprised with this book. I honestly didn't know much going into it, but I was like, hey, you know, I had like kind of a lighter week, or like, you know, I could fit another book or two into this week, so I picked it up. and I really liked it. I love the art style. I actually like the art style more in the interiors than I did on the cover. Yeah, I really like the style of this book, and especially because it's all like the futuristic but very present world of apps. And I like the personalities of these characters, and I like some of the jokes that land in with the artwork. Let me show you one especially with the dog just giving like cross eyes to Vita. Let me see if I can find it. It's like towards the end. Let's see, yeah, like this small moment of the dog giving cross eyes, like, come on, can I sleep with you? He's like, okay, you can. And I like these characters a lot. I like our main character, I believe her name is Charlie, and she has all these jobs on the internet, and she seems likable, and then people are trying to kill her, and she doesn't really know why, and then she hires a bodyguard who has a really low rating, and Vita explains why, because she's not fancy at killing people, but she does the job right, and obviously she has a very cold attitude, and it works though. The contrast totally works, and you fall in love with these characters in this relationship so quickly, which is why it's my number one. I just want to know what happens with these characters and where the relationship is going to go, and then you have the mystery of why is, she being targeted. It's a really good first issue, so I enjoyed it. I'm going to give Crowded Issue 1 4.5 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And again, don't forget to check out the Kickstarter for Like Father, Like Daughter. That will be in the description below as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.